Imagine being a teenager, your whole world ripped apart, not by strangers, but by the two people who should have protected you most, your own parents. They didn't just abandon me. They kicked me out for a lie, a cool, twisted fabrication spun by my own twin brother. The betrayal was a wound that festered for years, but what they didn't know was that one day, that wound would turn into an unshakable resolve, a power they would eventually try to exploit. Growing up, my twin brother and I lived in two completely different realities under the same roof. My parents, for reasons I still can't fathom, were utterly convinced he was destined for greatness. I, on the other hand, was labeled the black sheep simply because I preferred playing sports and making friends over endless studying. The constant comparisons were soul-crushing, eroding my self-esteem from the moment I could understand what their words meant. Our birthdays perfectly encapsulated this favoritism. He'd have extravagant parties, surrounded by his friends, while I was an afterthought, a ghost at my own celebration. Sleepovers were a regular thing for him, but I was never, ever allowed to bring my friends home. Honestly, I loathed every single minute of my childhood. The only beacon of kindness, the only person who seemed to genuinely see me, was my grandmother. When she visited, she'd bring me my favorite chocolates and slip me a few dollars, a small secret gesture that felt like a lifeline. As the years crawled by, that blatant favoritism warped into something darker, outright emotional abuse. My parents would openly mock my grades, belittle my hobbies, making me feel like no matter how hard I tried, I could never, ever be the perfect child they wanted. I was actually good at sports, but they wouldn't let me join any extracurriculars, demanding I focus only on studies. Like my brother, I was a kid, feeling utterly helpless, my spirit slowly being crushed. Then came sophomore year. I got grounded again, and this time the crime was having Snapchat. I hadn't done anything wrong, just downloaded an app like every other teenager to stay connected with friends. But to my parents, it was a monumental breach of trust. They went absolutely batshit crazy. They threw my things around my room. Then, in a terrifying display of power, they physically removed my door from its hinges. "You will have no privacy as long as you live under our roof," my dad declared. Watching this unfold, my twin brother, the person who should have been my ally, instead exploited the situation. The toxic environment they created allowed him to thrive on my pain. He developed this chilling pattern of lying about me, falsely accusing me of things I never did, just to get himself off the hook. If he stole something, he'd effortlessly shift the blame to me, and my parents, already predisposed to believe the worst about me, swallowed his lies whole. He'd even demean me in front of my friends at school, making fun of my appearance. Despite all this, I had a wide circle of friends. I was approachable, open, eager to connect. My brother, however, struggled socially. He was an introvert, awkward, and he started to resent my ability to connect with people. This simmering jealousy reached a boiling point on our 14th birthday. No one, and I mean no one, showed up for his party. It was heartbreaking for him, I suppose. But for me, my friends took me out for ice cream, and I had a genuinely wonderful day. This just infuriated him. To get his revenge, my brother started spreading vicious, false rumors about me at school. He painted me as a spoiled brat, and worse, he falsely claimed I was physically abusing him at home, playing on the fact that our parents supposedly loved him more. And unbeknownst to me, he took things to a truly disturbing level. He'd punch himself, purposefully inflicting injuries like a black eye or a bruised shoulder. The next day, he'd confidently walk into school, displaying these self-inflicted wounds as proof of my supposed violence, fabricating elaborate stories. When our parents questioned him, he'd lie, saying it was from playing football with his friends. The lies and his alleged black eyes started to gain traction. People began to believe his twisted version of events. Soon, whispers followed me everywhere. Even my friends started looking at me with suspicion. At first, it was subtle. Friends who once chatted freely in the hallways suddenly became distant. Invitations to hangouts dried up. It was like a switch had been flipped. People were hesitant to associate with a spoiled, violent girl. One day, I finally mustered the courage to ask my ex-best friend what was going on. She opened up, revealing every detailed lie my brother had spread, accusing me of things I would never even dream of doing. The shock that hit me was visceral. a mix of disbelief and raw betrayal. It felt like the ground beneath me had simply vanished. My own brother, someone I had grown up with, was actively destroying my life. It was a betrayal that cut so deep, leaving a knot in my stomach and a heavy, aching heart. The next day, I confronted him at school. He ignored me. I begged him to stop lying, but he just smirked, telling me I deserved to rot alone. I was paralyzed, speechless. His lies and his behavior were genuinely starting to scare me. I wanted to tell my parents, but the fear that they would choose him, believe him over me, was overwhelming. The isolation stung, particularly because I had always prided myself on being open and friendly. It felt like my brother's jealousy-fueled lies were systematically tearing down every connection I had ever built. Even teachers started catching wind of the rumors. It was surreal, like living in a parallel reality where my true self was completely overshadowed by the malicious story spun by my own twin. These weren't just teenage gossip anymore. They were shaping how people genuinely perceived me. By the way, if you're still with me through this nightmare, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Trust me, the twists in this story are far from over, and you won't want to miss what happens next. My worst nightmare came true when the nasty rumor reached the principal's ears. He immediately called me, my brother, and our parents into his office. My heart pounded against my ribs. I sat there, praying my brother would finally come clean. But he didn't. Instead, he doubled down on the lies. He looked the principal straight in the eye and affirmed that, yes, the rumors were true, painting me as a vicious bully who beat him up when our parents weren't around. I couldn't believe it. Shock washed over me as he continued spinning this twisted, elaborate story about how I was angry at him for getting more love from our parents. It was all a bunch of lies, but he stuck to his narrative like glue. My mom started to cry, clutching my brother like he was some kind of hero. My dad tried to comfort him, praising him for being brave and promising nothing would ever happen to him again. I desperately tried to defend myself, pleading with the principal that it was all made up. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of accusations, frantically trying to swim to the surface. But my brother kept at it, insisting I was this angry, violent person taking out my frustrations on him daily. My mom's tears flowed, and she kept giving me these accusing, disgusted looks. It was like fighting against a solid wall of belief in my brother's fabricated story. The principal reprimanded me sternly, saying the school didn't tolerate bullying and that this was grounds for suspension. I begged him not to suspend me, tears streaming down my face, trying to tell him I hadn't done anything to my brother. But he was firm. I was suspended for 10 days to set an example. It hit me hard. I practically begged him to reconsider. Angry and embarrassed, my parents dragged me out of the principal's office. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to plead my case, make them understand, but they were having none of it. We left the school, my heart heavy with frustration and humiliation. When we got home, things took a drastic, horrifying turn. My dad, out of nowhere, started packing my stuff. I was shocked, confused, unable to process what was happening. My mom asked him what he was doing, but he just shouted that he couldn't let me live in the same house as my brother anymore. I was on my knees, sobbing, pleading with my brother to just tell them the truth. But he stayed cold, unmoved by my raw emotions. My dad continued, his movements brutal and final, then threw my suitcase into the foyer. I clung to his legs, still begging him not to throw me out. It was a nightmare unfolding in broad daylight. He told me a bully like me didn't deserve to live in his house, and that he'd call his mother, my grandmother, to pick me up if she wanted to. My world crumbled. I stood there in utter shock, my belongings scattered, kicked out of my own home at 14. Eventually, my grandmother arrived. She gathered my things, helped me put them in her car, and settled me into the passenger seat. Before driving off, she walked back to my parents' front door. She rang the doorbell, and when my dad opened it, she started yelling at him, her voice shaking with righteous fury for how he had treated me. With stern determination, she warned him, if he ever approached me or tried to contact me again, she wouldn't hesitate to involve the police or CPS. What you've done to a child could land you in jail, she declared. My mother tried to deflect, blaming me, but my grandmother wasn't having any of it. She stood her ground, defending me, emphasizing that I was just a child who didn't deserve such heartless treatment. It was the first time in my life I truly felt how powerful my grandmother was. She didn't cower. And unlike my parents, she trusted me. We drove away, leaving behind the only home I had ever known. I can't even begin to describe the indescribable pain I felt. I remember just crying on the bed for days, unable to eat, despite my grandmother's gentle urging. I told her everything my brother had done, and she was shocked, but more importantly, she assured me she believed every word. I finally had one person who had my back. When my 10 days of suspension lifted, returning to school felt like stepping back into a lion's den. The faces of my classmates spoke volumes, judgment, whispers, sidelong glances. The weight of the false accusations clung to me. My brother, meanwhile, completely ignored me, acting like I didn't exist, surrounded by the few people who now believed his lies and saw him as a victim. No matter how much I tried to tell my side of the story, it fell on deaf ears. I was an outcast, branded with an unjust label that shadowed me everywhere. In the classroom, the cafeteria, the corridors, eyes met mine with disdain and mistrust. I became a loner, keeping my head down, attending classes, eating lunch alone, and going straight home. No friends. It felt like no one wanted me there. Through it all, my parents never once called to check on me. But my grandmother, bless her heart, constantly reminded me this wasn't my fault, that life would eventually be okay. And she was right. I graduated high school with good grades, clinging to the hope of college, where I might finally have a better life. And I did. Going away to college was the first time I truly experienced freedom. No one watching over my shoulder, no one comparing my grades, no one competing with me. I met incredible people and formed genuine friendships with like-minded individuals. Despite the emotional and physical scars, I focused on putting it all behind me and soaking up every ounce of that college experience. It was during this time that I discovered my knack for content writing. I'd always wanted to be a writer, but I wasn't sure if it was a sustainable career. So I decided to pursue it as a freelancer for side money. I signed up on various sites, securing jobs from prominent clients, slowly building my portfolio. I kept this side hustle through college, never asking my parents for a penny. When I graduated, I realized I could pursue content writing full-time. I was doing incredibly well, thanks to multiple clients and long-term professional relationships. This legitimate freelancing career not only made me financially independent, but allowed me to become a digital nomad, traveling the world. The travel, seeing so much beauty, helped heal parts of me I didn't know were broken. I saved, took a chance on myself, and haven't looked back. The only person who truly remained my family throughout this journey was my grandmother. I adored her. She was sad when I moved out, but she understood my need for independence. Despite my hectic schedule, I made it a point to be there for her. Weekends were for visits, sharing meals, or sitting on the porch, engrossed in conversations that spanned from childhood tales to recent happenings. I'd dedicate entire afternoons to helping her with chores or taking leisurely walks in the park. Recently, I finished one of the most important projects of my career. I can't name the brand, but it was a massive deal, writing blogs and product descriptions for them. Afterward, I asked the team to leave positive reviews on my website, which they happily did. I took screenshots of my Instagram, knowing this collaboration was huge. As expected, other content writers congratulated me, reposted my story, and word spread. Soon, I was getting messages from strangers needing help, and even some relatives reached out to congratulate me. Then, my college principal contacted me. He'd seen my success and wanted me to speak at a seminar about building a content writing career. I'm not great at public speaking, but I took the chance. Standing before those eager faces, sharing my experiences and insights, felt like my life had come full circle. I spoke about my struggles, how I worked hard despite hard days. It was incredibly fulfilling to empower others and contribute to the writing community. Clips of my speech even went viral on Facebook. It felt good to finally be recognized for my hard work. Last week, I was invited to speak on a local news channel about the benefits of content writing. I was nervous but excited. On the show, I shared my journey, the importance of client reviews, and how appreciation posts could open doors. Reaching a broader audience was humbling and exhilarating. When it aired, I shared clips on Instagram, proud of the opportunity. This is how my relatives and cousins truly started understanding how well I was doing. You see, since my parents never spoke about me, they had no idea I was working with popular brands or getting invited to TV shows. Word spread quickly through the family. I guess that TV interview finally reached my parents' ears because just a few days later, while I was working on a project, I checked my phone. 6 missed calls from my mom. I was utterly shocked. After years of silence, why was she calling? I hesitantly called her back, and she picked up immediately. I asked if everything was okay, and she started congratulating me. My dad, probably sitting right there, jumped in too, asking about my life. I answered, not thinking much of it until they started asking how much I was earning. That's really none of your business, I said, my brow furrowing. We're family, my dad insisted. You shouldn't be shy about telling us your income. I told him I was doing well financially. Hearing this, my mom then started in about how hard their life was. Suspicion flared in my gut. The conversation quickly devolved. We're retired now, my mom began, and we've been wanting to renovate the house. It's not in the best shape, but we have no savings left. Okay, I replied, wary. Your success has given us hope, she continued. After watching your TV interview, we thought maybe you could help us out by paying for the renovations. My dad chimed in. After all, we are family. You shouldn't hesitate to share some of your earnings with us. We really could use your help. Are you joking with me? Why are you asking me for money? I snapped. When you haven't talked to me in years. I don't know what made you decide to reach out, and while I appreciate the congratulations, I am not going to help you out in any way. My mom immediately started calling me a bitch, saying I needed to support them as family. My dad added that as my parents, they deserved to be looked after, and this was the least I could do. I was beyond pissed. I wanted to give them a piece of my mind, but then a truly satisfying idea sparked in my head. Instead of just arguing, I would teach them a lesson they would never forget for thinking they could mooch off me after all these years of mistreatment. I calmly told my parents I was willing to help them if, and only if, they agreed to my demands. My dad, curious, asked what it was. Without hesitation, I laid it all out. If they wanted my help, they had to publicly admit in front of our entire family and friends that my brother was a mastermind behind the hurtful rumors that had utterly tarnished my reputation. I wanted them to humiliate my brother the same way they had humiliated me in front of everyone, by believing his lies and manipulations. I wanted them to take accountability for their actions and acknowledge the profound pain they had caused. My dad immediately questioned the necessity of such an admission. My mom said it was all quite unnecessary and suggested a private discussion. But I held my ground. This condition was non-negotiable. It was a prerequisite for any future assistance from me. As the tension escalated, my dad raised his voice, asserting his role as my father, emphasizing it was my duty to help family in need. My mom, in a last-ditch effort, urged me to do the right thing and help them, stressing the years they had spent raising me. I couldn't help but find the irony bitter. Raise me, I retorted, my voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath. You kicked me out. It was my grandmother who raised me, not you. They grew more and more agitated, but I stood firm. If they wanted to establish contact and seek my financial assistance from now on, the truth needed to be acknowledged publicly, and my brother needed to face consequences for his actions. Since that conversation, my parents have been calling. Incessantly, but I'm ignoring every single call. Part of me regrets even calling them back that day. Was I wrong? Was I being too harsh for not helping them at all? It's been a whirlwind of a week since I last shared my story, and the outpouring of support and encouragement has been absolutely overwhelming. It's heartening to know I'm not alone in this. I'm glad everyone agreed I shouldn't engage with my parents or consider helping them after what they put me through. The truth is, I gave them that condition precisely because I knew it was impossible. I know they love my brother too much. Even if they figured out his lies by now, they'd never put him through what they put me through. Today, my brother sent me a nasty text message after my parents, yet again, tried to contact me, and I refused to pick up. His message? A knife to the gut. Hey sis, it's been a long time since I saw you, and I can tell you that every day without you in my life has been great. I heard that Mom and Dad reached out to you, and you gave them a crazy ultimatum. They are never going to go through with it. You know that, right? They clearly never loved you, and they will never do anything to hurt me. I admit that I did lie about you 15 years ago, but it's been a long time since then. So stop being so selfish and try to move on from past. You are unmarried and childless anyway, so why do you not want to help them out by paying for their repairs and renovations around the house? Do the right thing and be a better daughter. Reading that felt like a stab to my chest. The sheer audacity to dismiss my struggles, my conditions, spoke volumes about his utter lack of empathy, and the attempt to guilt-trip me by emphasizing my unmarried and childless status added another layer of breathtaking insensitivity. His insinuation that I should prioritize their needs over my own well-being was not only offensive, but highlighted just how little he thought of me. Fueled by frustration and a blazing desire for justice, I decided it was finally time to take matters into my own hands and reveal the truth that had been hidden for far too long. I sat down and composed an email to my parents and close relatives, sharing every painful detail of my childhood, the unfair treatment, the oppressive environment. I recounted the malicious, utterly untrue rumors my brother had spread, the severe consequences, the destruction of my reputation. I wrote about how my parents had kicked me out to the curb, and how, if not for my grandmother, I might have been dead in the streets. Towards the end, I asked everyone to read the message my brother had just sent me. I attached a screenshot, a clear, undeniable confession where he admitted to lying about me. It was the irrefutable evidence I hoped would finally expose the lies that had persisted for so long. I sent that email just an hour ago, and I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that all hell will break loose once my parents and my brother read it. I'll update you soon regarding how my family reacts. It's been a month since my last update, and as you can imagine, my family did, indeed, erupt after receiving that email. My parents have been subjected to a torrent of criticism from relatives who were previously completely unaware of the extent of their favoritism and emotional abuse. A lot of family members reached out to me, telling me they had no idea and apologizing for not being there. My brother and my parents, meanwhile, sent me a barrage of text messages that quickly became more abusive and violent. That's when I decided enough was enough. I reached out to a lawyer, who promptly sent them a cease and desist notice. It basically warned them to stop contacting me or face dire legal consequences. I guess that must have scared them straight, because they actually stopped. My grandmother thinks I've done the right thing by letting everyone know what happened, and she supports me 100%. She's the only person who matters to me, so I'm just grateful she has my back. It's now been 2 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that everything in my life is finally going well. Professionally, my content writing business is flourishing. Invitations to speak at seminars and podcasts continue to roll in, solidify my position as a respected figure in my field. I'm as close to my grandmother as ever. I recently took a week off from work to spend some quality time with her. She's really into gardening these days and taught me so much about various flowers and herbs. Those moments with her, sharing meals, heartfelt conversations, or simply enjoying each other's company, are truly my favorite, most cherished memories. My family hasn't contacted me since the lawyer's letter, and I'm genuinely happy they are staying away. Personally, I've started going to therapy. It's a long journey, but I'm committed to working on healing myself from all those years of pain and betrayal. I think this will be the last update for now. This story has been a long, painful journey, but it's also been one of incredible resilience and finding my own strength. Standing up for myself, especially when it felt like no one else would, was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most empowering. What about you? If you were in my shoes, facing years of betrayal and then a sudden demand for money, would you have given your parents an ultimatum? Or would you have found a different path to justice and healing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I truly want to hear what you think.